Greetings, Spartan, and welcome back to the UNSC Infinity Wargame Simulation Training Program. Today, Spartan, we will be covering the Forerunner Suppressor. The Z-130 Directed Energy Automatic Weapon is a Forerunner weapon of unknown origin. This weapon proved to be integral to the Forerunners during their war with the Flood, and it was used until the war ended. Its high rate of fire and widespread made dealing with large groups of infection forms much easier. And while it's easy to compare this weapon to the UNSC Assault Rifle or Covenant Storm Rifle, it actually most resembles the M7 submachine gun or plasma rifle. It's compact, has a high rate of fire, and is very powerful at very close ranges. Now, this weapon probably derives its name from being able to suppress enemies with overwhelming amounts of fire. And against the Flood, it was probably very effective in this aspect, but it is much weaker when it is used against targets with armor and shielding. The Suppressor fires hard light particles at a rate of 920 rounds per minute from a 48-round magazine that requires 2 seconds to reload. It has the shortest red reticle range of the automatic weapons at 22.93 meters, and it also has the slowest projectiles. This weapon will remove the shields of a Spartan 4 with 10 rounds, and kill an unshielded Spartan with 6. When combined with a melee attack, only 6 rounds are needed to neutralize your opponent, and it will require 28 rounds to remove an overshield. Now, when you have a damage boost, only 5 rounds are needed to remove shielding, with 3 more rounds to kill your target, and you will be able to remove an overshield with 14 rounds. Aside from a charged bolt shot, the Suppressor has the fastest time to kill of all of the loadout weapons, but this is hindered by the fact that it requires more rounds to kill, has low accuracy, slow projectiles, and a very short range, which makes it very inconsistent and at times unreliable at anything other than close range. This doesn't make the Suppressor a bad weapon, but almost every other weapon has an advantage against it at anything beyond very close range, so you'll have to take additional steps to unlock its full potential. First of all, never approach an enemy head-on if you can avoid it. Now, this is a standard tactic for close-range weapons, but it is doubly important for the Suppressor because the default motion sensor extends to almost double the distance of its red reticle range. This also includes sprinting into combat. A lot of Spartans like to sprint at full speed right into their opponents and then open up with a hail of fire. This is not what you want to do. Instead, you need to save your sprint for when you'll actually need it, such as escaping from a battle that you know you're going to lose. When you do enter combat, you will have to be very diligent about your accuracy. Because of the widespread and slow speed of the projectiles, it's very easy to miss, even at close range, so you'll need to compensate for the projectile's travel time by aiming ahead of your target, and be prepared to burst fire if your opponent is more than 15 meters away. Obviously, a melee attack is a great way to help finish off opponents quicker, but if you don't open up with one, then make sure that you wait until you hit your opponent with at least 6 rounds before you strike them with a melee attack, otherwise it may be a wasted effort. And you'll also need to find a good ranged weapon as soon as possible. You could theoretically use the firepower package to spawn with one, but the abundance of rifles used by the Spartans in the simulator will give you ample supply if you're patient. Now, the Suppressor is a very powerful close-range weapon, so we're going to design a kit to help maximize our close-range potential. However, the first thing that we're going to select is a Magnum to help cover our limited range. Sometimes you will need a way to combat an opponent outside of the short range of the Suppressor, and the Magnum is perfect for this task. Use it to finish off weakened or retreating opponents, or when your magazine goes dry. But as soon as you get the opportunity, replace this weapon with a ranged option like the battle rifle. Next, we will be selecting a pulse grenade. These grenades are very good at close range because they detonate almost immediately after contact with any hard surface. The problem with this is that you won't be able to bounce them around corners or through doorways. However, a well-placed throw will drop your opponent's shields. Just don't throw the grenade right at them. It will probably just bounce off and possibly detonate out of range. Throw the grenade at the ground or a wall next to them to ensure that you hit them. Close quarters combat is a dangerous place full of a variety of hazards, and the burst of horizontal movement granted by the thruster pack will aid in your survival. Use it to avoid enemy grenades, melee attacks, charged bolt shots, and if you happen to stick an opponent with a plasma grenade, you can thrust away if they try to take you with them. There's a wide selection of creative uses for this ability. Now, the small burst of speed may not seem like much, but it has a fast recharge time which allows for liberal use, so use it whenever you deem it necessary. The one downside of using a pulse grenade is that you only spawn with one, so we will be using the Grenadier Tactical Package to spawn with an extra. This way you don't have to worry about wasting one grenade on a bad throw, and Grenadier also increases the amount of grenades you can carry by one, allowing you to potentially carry 3 of each grenade if you find them in the field, so don't pass up the opportunity to grab some. And if you feel confident enough to spawn with only one pulse grenade, then resupply is arguably a more viable option. For our support upgrade, we will be choosing explosives. This may seem like a strange option because it won't increase the effectiveness of our pulse grenades, but we are using it because it reduces the amount of grenade damage we receive by about 20%. This is very helpful because a lot of opponents rely on a grenade headshot combination to quickly deal with close-ranged opponents. As long as you aren't standing directly on those grenades, you should be okay. Not to mention that close quarters combat is full of nearly unavoidable grenades, so with explosives and the thruster pack, you should be able to minimize the damage you take from most of them. And if you happen to find plasma or frag grenades in the field, then they will become much more powerful. Overall, the Suppressor is made for very close range combat. With good accuracy, it can kill opponents in just over 1 second, and thanks to a very large magazine, it can sustain continuous fire for a surprising amount of time. But the inconsistency caused by the widespread and low speed of its projectiles demands precision and patience. And outside of its small effective range, you will have trouble dealing with most enemies, and you'll have to use your other resources to make the most of this weapon. But if you can get in close, flank, and use corners to your advantage, you can turn this weapon into one that your enemies will fear. Despite its name, the Suppressor may not be silent, but it is deadly. Thank you for watching this episode of my Halo 4 weapon guides. If you enjoyed it, please check out my other videos and be sure to stay tuned for more to come. As always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. My name is Matt, and I'll see you next time.